Hello, and today we're going to do the Samantha necklace. Samantha won the poll I held last week, and I'm going to record this in a fairly slow fashion so that you can see exactly what I'm doing. So it's going to be over a series of probably 3 separate videos. Okay, so let's get straight into it. Before I start the name, I'll just introduce you to the tools here. We have there are round nose pliers. These are Pastorinos. Quite hard to get hold of now, so I recommend that you get a pair of Stusa pliers. You can get those on Rio Grande, and they are the closest I can find that are fine enough on the end in order to make these small loops that we need to make when we're making names. Okay, and we need a good pair of side cutters. Now these might not look it because they're a bit ragged at the bottom here, all the plastic's coming off, but I've had these quite a while. They're Lindstrom pliers, and they're very good pliers, top of the range, ideal for using to make names, to get a nice sharp cut. Okay, now this wire is silver plated copper wire or craft wire. You can get it at hobby shops, I believe, in 4-meter rolls, probably for about $7 or $8. I ordered a huge batch from Germany, and I sell them on my website for considerably less than that. So if you want to order some of this wire, you can on my website, and I'll put the URL just below this video, so you can go and have a look. And it's great wire. It's the same wire that I used for 20 odd years to make names at markets and similar venues, and it's just really the ideal wire. Today I work with sterling silver, but I also still work with this, and there are all the names that I make are available on my website, and you can have a look at those if you wish. Go along to andythenamebender.com. The URL again is just below. Okay, now the last thing is the silver cloth. You can pick these up anywhere, hardware stores or even just jewelry stores. They're not expensive. And I use this just to clean the wire and straighten the wire, as you'll see in a second. So let's get right into it. Okay, here's my coil of wire. Now I use the silver cloth just to straighten the wire and clean it at the same time. Okay, now to start the Samantha off, what I'm going to do is point the wire to the left here, and I'm just going to make what I call an initial loop. An initial loop in all my ebook and all my teaching methods, I call it an initial loop. It just means the loop you make to start the name with. It can go 2 ways. It can go counterclockwise or clockwise. In the case of the Samantha, we want to start counterclockwise. Okay, I'm just bringing the wire all the way around now in front of that horizontal section, all the way around until the wire is pointing off to the right. Okay, now this is a start. Now comes the S. Okay. Now, as I go, I'm going to be quoting the measurements in millimeters. It's just that inches are a little bit awkward at these kind of scales, so millimeters it is. Alright, so just a few millimeters, probably about 4 or 5 millimeters along the wire here, just after the initial loop. I'm going to bend the wire around to the left, counterclockwise again, and make a kind of semi-loop here. Now I'm going to keep holding the wire here with the pliers on the right with the right hand, and I'm going to make a freehand, what I call a freehand bend, which means that it's not I'm not using the jaws of the pliers to bend the wire around exactly close to the jaws, if that makes sense. But I'm just using the pliers here as a vise or a grip, so that I can bend the wire around into the shape of a C, a letter C, small letter C that is, or smallish. Okay, until I'm around to that stage. Now I'm going to change my grip. I'm going to grip the wire in the middle where the S is going to be, or in this case at the bottom of the C shape, and I'm going to bend the wire around clockwise. Again, freehand. You can actually use the jaws here more because you can follow the jaws more closely. I'm going to stop there and change my grip. I'm going to now use the jaws to finish off that S shape. Okay, so you see I'm bringing the wire around until it's facing upwards. It's going up all the way around and then upwards to the left there. Okay, now that puts a curl on the bottom of the S. Now I'm going to do what's called a backward crimp. So a backward crimp is basically, I'm going to grip the wire here where I want the wire to go backwards, and I bend the wire backwards like so, and you'll see, if I turn this upside down, you'll see that I've bent the wire backwards on itself. Now what I'm going to do is crimp it, which means I'm going to squash that wire there, so I'm going to close that gap. We do this using the flat part of the round nose pliers at the jaws here. Alrighty, so here we go. Just nice and gently squash that wire. This wire is quite easy to work with, so don't press too hard. I'm going to come around to the front again. Now the wire's crimped or closed up. I'm just going to bring that wire, it follows the wire behind the bottom part of the S as we've done the backward crimp, and now it finishes off going off to the right. Okay, now I'm just going to adjust this with my hands. I can do this. You'll find that you will do this as you go along. You'll assess, you look at the letters, your eye will judge what size they are, if they look bent, straight, whatever, and you'll tend to make small adjustments as you go along, and you'll see me do it too. Alright, now a key thing to note at this point is now the bottom of this S now dictates what I call the baseline of the name. So I work from the baseline, which means all the letters, or not all of them, but most of the letters will come up from the baseline, and they will be in line with the baseline. So it keeps the bottom of the name straight. And I'll explain as I go along through the name how this is done. Alright. So now we come along the baseline here. Now we're going to, the gaps between the letters, because Samantha is a long name, we want to keep the gap and the proportion of the letters actually quite small. We can sort of work between a few millimeters either side as a scale of the letters. It'll become a little more evident as I go along, but what I'm going to do, I'm going to judge what sort of gap I'm going to make here. So I'm going to grip the baseline there just after the S. I'm going to bend the wire up vertically at a right angle. Okay, so now we have that. You see this small gap here between the S and the vertical section becomes our first space between the letters. Usually 1 to 2 millimeters is all you need for this space. Now I'm going to make the A here. So what I'm going to do is grip the wire just a couple of millimeters up the wire. Now I'm going to bend the wire to the right at right angles, adjusting as I go along, just to make sure it's nice and straight. And there we are. Now this distance here between the baseline and the right angle bend is normally about 5 millimeters, but in this case I've made it about 4 or 3 or 4 because, as I said, we want to keep the scale of the letters quite petite for Samantha, as it's going to be quite a long name. So we want to make it as short as possible, if that makes sense, because when it sits around the neck it will look quite unwieldy if it's too long. Alright, now I grip the wire just after that right hand bend there. and I'm going to bend the wire towards me, and I call this move a forward crimp. Just basically means that I move the wire forward and then back on itself. So now the wire is facing off to the left, and as you can see from the top, there's a gap there, and now I'm going to close that gap, hence the crimp. Just be very careful you don't slip at this point. Now that's closed. Now I'm going to grip that doubled up section. I'm going to turn the name around for ease of working with, and I'm just going to bend the wire around. This is becoming our A, our letter A. Okay, I'm moving the wire around as I go because it's just easier to have it in this orientation as I'm working. Okay, what I'm doing here is you can see I'm following the jaws of the pliers, coming all the way around until the wire touches that doubled up section, which is, it's upside down obviously, but here that doubled up section there, it's touching that now. So I bring the name back to its normal orientation. Okay, now you can see the letter A starting to form. Now I'm just looking at it, and I've got to be careful here I don't veer from the baseline, and I can see I have. So I'm just going to adjust this so it's level with the baseline. I've made the A a little bit larger, straightening it out as I go along, and that's better. Now you can see the bottom of the A now is level with that baseline. Every letter you do, you must check that before you finish the letter. Okay, so now I'm going to make a backward crimp. So I grip the wire just where the wire is touching that doubled up portion of the top of the A, and I go backward. This is a backward crimp. So I bend the wire away from me backwards. You can see the gap there. I'm going to close that. That's the crimp. Okay, so now we pretty much have the letter A. So I grip that doubled up section on the right there, and I'm going to bend the wire to the right. Now level with the baseline, always level with the baseline. When we come off a letter, from the baseline, level with it. Okay, so there we are. Just checking, yeah, that's pretty straight. So there we have the A. Now the M. Okay, so now we need to make the space between the A and the M roughly the same as the space between the S and the A, and it goes the same for all letters. So here I grip the doubled up section of the right hand side of the A, and I'm going to make a bend around to the counterclockwise until the wire is pointing vertically. That becomes the left hand side of the M. Okay, now I'm going to grip the wire just level with the top of the A, and I'm going to do a backward crimp. Okay, so we've gone backwards, and again closing that gap, and I'm going to wrap the video up here and continue in the next video because my 15 minutes is almost up, and that's what YouTube requires. So I'll see you in the next video.